What do you think the genocide tells us about these NATO countries arming this genocide, about the core values of so-called Western liberalism in terms of your work on global inequality?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's been a horrendous 2 years. I think it's revealed quite a lot about how the U.S. and its Western allies see Palestine in the context of the world system. I think it's important to understand. Look, a lot of people have this question: why does the U.S. continue to support Israel despite Israel conducting genocide and war crimes, et cetera, et cetera? A lot of people fall back on this narrative of it must be due to the power of the Israeli lobby in U.S. politics, and of course, there's some truth to that. But I think it's also important to understand that the U.S. has very particular material interests at stake here, which is primarily what drives its policy. So U.S. support for Israel goes back to the 1960s. That was during a time when Arab nationalism and Arab socialism were extremely popular in the region, and they were gaining substantial traction. These were movements towards national liberation and economic sovereignty, and the U.S. considered this to be a problem because it knew that it would mean that Middle East countries would have more control over their own resources and their own production, which means, of course, that their resources would not be so cheaply available for Western firms and Western profits. So the U.S. wanted to intervene to crush this tendency, and they used Israel to do it. So this is a decades-long project, right? They armed Israel to run, operations all across the region, to decapitate national liberation movements, to destroy these tendencies. And it's important to understand that, in this sense, Israel is not like an ally of the U.S. in a conventional way, but rather a kind of proxy force, right? A kind of military proxy force. The U.S. knows that a liberated Palestine would mean the end of this proxy force arrangements and ultimately the end of U.S. control in the region. A liberated Palestine means a liberated Middle East ultimately, and this is something that the U.S. Is not willing to accept. They see the Middle East as, in many ways, the center of the world, right? Kind of the hinge of Africa and Asia and Europe. And the idea of liberation and sovereignty in that region is something that is antithetical to Western economic interests.